Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to begin and hope that our final board member will be able to join us. Traffic and other things kind of are getting in the way, and we respect the challenges that all of us are experiencing. So I would like to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to this second meeting of 2023 of the Board of Directors for the Corporation for Public Benefit to Administer the Nevada Youth Legislature. Whew. We call it the NYL Board. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senator Harris?
Here.
Senator Scheibel?
Here.
Assemblywoman Mosca?
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres? Former Senator Woodhouse?
Here.
Mr. Akuta Lim?
Here.
And Chair Wiener.
Present. Thank you, Madam Secretary. I'm thrilled to welcome our returning board members representing the Senate, Senator Scheibel and Harris, representing the Assembly, Assemblywoman Torres, I'm going to say Assembly Member Torres, if it's all right with everyone, representing the public, former State Senator Joyce Woodhouse, representing the NYL alumni as a former youth legislator and Chair Zana Kuda Lim, and our newest member, welcome, Assembly Member Erica Mosca. Our board is a fabulous collaboration. We represent the public, former legislators, current legislators, the alumni. All the voices bring such music to the conversations that we have, and we bring an enlightened perspective from each of us as we have these conversations. So I'm grateful to all of you for bringing your perspectives, your experiences, your energy, and of course your inspiration to do good work both for the board and for the Nevada Youth Legislature program. I want to thank all of you. At this time, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. We'll open the meeting up to any comments or questions from the public. Is there anyone in the north wanting to speak? I don't see anyone racing to the table. And we have no one in the south wanting to come to the table. Is there anyone on the telephone? Virtual experience?
The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we will move on to agenda item number 3, and this is the review of the Nevada Youth Legislature revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2022-23 and the approval of the budget for the 2023-24 budget. And we're thrilled that Asher Killian, the Legislative Counsel, yay, from the Legal Division, will be presenting the budget. Mr. Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Counsel. This is the first public meeting where I've said that. So thank you, Madam Chair. So you have before you 2 sheets showing the proposed budget against the last 2 fiscal years' actual budgets, and then a second sheet showing the approved versus the actual budget for the immediately preceding fiscal year. There are a couple things I wanted to note because some of this may look unexpected. Generally, the youth legislature operates on a biennial cycle, much like the legislature, where there are different activities in the 2 years of the biennium. Generally, the first year of the biennium is where there is significantly less travel for the youth legislators. There's a 1-day training where the northern youth legislators go to the south, so travel expenses are significantly less. In the second year of the biennium, which now lines up with the fiscal year that includes the legislative session, there's a 2-day training where the southern legislators, youth legislators, come north. So there's significantly more travel spending in that year. The fiscal year that just ended, 22-23, is one of those years that had the additional amount of travel. And so you'll notice that the reserve funding that the youth legislature had, we spent that down a little bit in the second year of this previous biennium to cover some of those travel expenses. You'll also notice that a maximum amount of $2,750 was approved for scholarships, but no dollars were paid out for scholarships against fiscal year 22-23. Generally, the way that the scholarships work, at each annual meeting, the board is approving its budgeted amount for scholarships that it will then award at the next annual meeting. And those are charged against the fiscal year that has just ended. Typically, these meetings happen in June or July. This one is happening in September. So the scholarships that will be approved today would ordinarily have been charged against the fiscal 22-23 budget, but since that fiscal year has already ended, no money was spent in the previous fiscal year, and that money was rolled forward to this next 23-24 fiscal year. So you'll notice that there is $4,500 budgeted for scholarships. That's an amount of money that's sufficient to cover both the scholarships that are being approved today, as well as the scholarships that this board may approve at its next annual meeting. The NYL did receive a $5,000 appropriation from the legislature. The budget for this upcoming fiscal year, since it involves only the one-day training and only a smaller portion of the youth legislature traveling, should generally be able to fit within this appropriation. So we've budgeted for that whole $5,000 to be spent, roughly half in travel and half in operating expenses, with the scholarship reserve from the previous year and gifts, grants, and donations from this year covering all of the scholarship expenses. So the budget shows an equal reserve coming into this year and leaving this fiscal year. And I believe that covers the few things that may have looked weird when you were looking at the budget sheets. So at this time, Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I do have a question before I open it up to my colleagues. In a correspondence that I reviewed, you have concerns about next year. Would you address those because of accelerating costs and the monies that have been appropriated and what it looks like in reality?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Counsel. Yes, so the legislature also appropriated $5,000 for the second year of the biennium, which would be fiscal 24-25. That's a year past where this budget is. The complication there is that's the year where there is much heavier travel. That's when all of the Southern youth legislators fly up to the north and there is an overnight. Last year in fiscal 22-23, the youth legislature actually spent about $12,000 in travel and another $5,000 in operating expenses, which includes hotel expenses, for a total of about $17,500. So the $5,000 appropriation that the legislature made for this fiscal year is probably sufficient to cover the youth legislature's operations for this fiscal year. Since it was an equal $5,000 in the second fiscal year of the biennium, the Youth Legislature Board is probably going to have to rely on its reserves to cover the costs in the second year of this biennium. And it will then need to think about going to the legislature with a larger ask for appropriations if it intends to continue the same level of service and travel going into future biennia.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. Are there any additional questions from the board? Based on what Asher has said, looking forward rather than waiting until we're in emergency mode, I would seek the approval or through a motion if that's required that whoever is chairing have a conversation with Mrs. Uridos about planning for this second year of the biennium, even though it's not before us right now, but it's still part of our responsibility to plan ahead so that we can provide for our needs going forward in the biennium. So I don't know, does it, Asher, Mr. Killian, does it require a motion, or can whoever's chair could volunteer to have that conversation? Do we need to vote on that, or could we just do it?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Legislative Counsel. So you could, just as chair, have that conversation with the director. If you want it to be an action of the entity, the board could direct that the chair engage in those conversations with the intent of having a different budgeted amount in future biennia.
I would feel more comfortable then to entertain a motion that whoever's chair have that conversation so we can plan more with more fiscal responsibility as we go forward based on the needs that have been just explained to us. Okay, we have a motion from Senator Scheibel. Do we have a second? Second from Senator Woodhouse. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Please note unanimous support among members present. Thank you, Mr. Killian. We appreciate your thorough report, and the information is extremely helpful for us as we take on that fiscal responsibility with great fervor. We'll now move on then to agenda item number 4, and this is the chair's report. And you'll see a lot of listing and a lot of information in here. And what I just want to say is that this, you'll see I've described the different activities for each of the years in the 2021, 2023. So you'll see the completion of that and then the beginning of the other term. So I've listed at great length what the different activities have been and the different meetings have addressed. And I've also provided you, rather than reading it all into the record, we have the document. What I have shared with you, though, is for the 2023, which is part of 2021-23 term, you'll see more detail about this on pages 3 and 7 through 8 in the annual report, which you've been provided. And for the meetings, trainings, and outside activities 2023 for this term, which started August 1st with the inaugural training, you will see more detail about that in the annual report. So, well, you won't get that in the annual report, but that will be the one that they do for the first year of the term. But what they've done so far, this group, we had the inaugural training here in Las Vegas, and it was extraordinary. They came very, very well prepared. We're doing a better job of building up how they prepare to come so that it's not a big surprise. The energy and attention to detail with this group is extraordinary. One of the activities, very early activities, we don't babysit, we don't require that they submit it. We want a copy if they do it, but they're not going to get a half unexcused activity credit, but we ask them and provide all of the reasons and the advantages for doing it to send an email to their legislators to introduce themselves, to explain what their role is and what the inaugural training was like, and ask for me. They get a template to work from. However, it's amazing that the day after the training, 3 youth legislators sent extraordinarily comprehensive emails, because I get a copy of everything on that connection with their legislators, and they're taking it very seriously, which is lovely to build these relationships early, and it gets them excited about it too, because when the legislators can appreciate it's not just being appointed and it's just a program, they are the voice of youth in that district. And when the legislators, buy into that, and the youth legislators have that level of support, it just elevates the whole experience for everybody who represents the district. So we had a training in September on message accountability, and they came prepared. They were amazing, and they had their elections. So yesterday, for their chair and vice chair, yesterday I did chair and vice chair training, which I've added in a few years back on the protocols and what their roles as leaders of leaders looks like, and they're very excited. Our next training will be October 12th, which is listening, effective listening skills. We're working on the agenda now, and then power presentations in November, and that will wrap up this year. So do we have any questions about the past and the current? Okay, then I'll move on to the miscellaneous. Just updating our awards. Between 2008 and 2023, we have earned 70 national international awards, because early on we earned a state that turns national, but most of these are international awards, and I've described in detail which awards events and which are we've earned, and then 2 are pending right now, so we'll wait to see what happens there. Are there any additional questions or comments on the chair's report? Anything you want to know? Okay, then we will move on. I don't believe that takes a vote. Do you think so, Mr. Killian? It's merely a report.
That's correct, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Council. You wouldn't need a vote on that report.
Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 5, and this is scholarships. And let me give an overview of what's been happening. We've had these 4 scholarships that are very representative of the people who support the program. Senator Woodhouse provides an annual scholarship. The NYL scholarship, Tina Ashdown, and I fund part of that, and she does $500. I do $250 of it. I have one in my name, and then one of our alums, Jonathan Oglesby, yearly funds a scholarship. Last year, we promote it. We promote it. They get messaging, they get reminders, they get all the information about the scholarship, and I can't understand how we've slipped in level of interest, because these scholarship applications are not difficult, and most of what we ask for, they probably put on other scholarship applications. We're not breaking the bank here with our youth legislators, but not this current year, but last year we had one applicant who was extraordinary. She had been chaired during her term. She was extraordinary. But then we had 3 scholarships that were not presented. So we rolled them over. And then this year we had 2 very, very worthy recipients, but that still means that Senator Woodhouse's and Jonathan Oglesby's will be rolled over to the next year. So if any of you have any ideas as to how we can promote this scholarship program, and the important thing to remember too, we've had as many as 10 or 12 apply in the past. That doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, the pool is very small. They have to have been in the program at least a year, left in good standing. They can't have been removed. And we've also done scholarships with postgraduates. So we've had those working on masters, and we've done it with at least 1 law student. So it can extend beyond, but the pool is very small. And we've had some who've received multiple scholarships because they get it. So, yes, please, Senator Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe it's time to see if we can consolidate some of these. I'm wondering if the drop in interest correlates with an increase in expense, right? 4 years ago, maybe you had 12 people who were willing to fill out an app for $500, and now you only have 2. Right, because it's $500, and they're looking to fill a $40,000 gap, right? And so maybe if we were offering 1 or 2 scholarships at a $2,000 amount, we might be able to attract a bit more interest.
And I appreciate that. I've pondered that too. And I'm so grateful. Senator Woodhouse is a perfect example of people who are dedicated to the program, who've come out of pocket to do this and be honored with their name on the scholarship. And alums who are even more removed from the program, as is Jonathan Oglesby, and it's Jonathan and Tara, his wife, to give a $500 scholarship. I think it's wonderful that Tina, who's our program facilitator, loves doing that, and we've upped that one because I donate that's the NYL scholarship, and I boost that up to $750. So I don't know that I have the capacity to give more than $1,000 a year. Right. That's a big commitment for me, and I've wondered about that too. So consolidating. I don't know. Joyce, Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be more than willing to have the scholarship that I provide to be consolidated with the Nevada Youth Legislature scholarship. If the body would want to do something like that, that's fine. Right now, the $500 is all I can do annually, but I'm more than happy to consolidate it with one of the others.
So if we just did based on this conversation, then we would have the $1,250. Would that be 13? What would that be? $750 and $5. So $1,250.
$1,250.
Yeah, that's where I started. So we'd have $1,250, and then we'd have my $1,000, and then we'd have the $500, which that's okay. Those are different amounts. Yes, Senator Scheibel.
I have a question. When these scholarships are awarded, I remember discussing them last time and picking recipients. Is there any kind of ceremony or event, or I wonder if one of the issues is that our wonderful youth legislators are a competitive little bunch, and
They are.
and if they knew that there was a dinner every year and that only 3 people got honored, they would all be clamoring for those scholarships.
Zahn and I and typically there are usually 3 of us who do scoring. One of the challenges with that, Mike, because of the timing, they apply in this late spring, maybe like April or so, and we make the decision. So they're notified very late in the year, and many of them are already in college or heading to college. So, and we're finding more and more that, I mean, it's on, Mr. Kudalim, if you chime in, but more and more these are young, they aren't just exiting youth legislators, many of them were in the program prior. And a couple of them we've actually delayed because they've done a deferral on their scholarship. They've either gone on a mission or they've taken a gap year, something like that. So we've deferred that scholarship for a year.
I have another idea.
Go for it.
What if we task the recipients of the scholarship with identifying somebody to receive the scholarship after them?
They don't know each other that well among the applicant pool. And it's amazing, some of the people you would think would apply, because Zahn gets to know them, and Mr. Kulim, through the trainings and things, some of the youth legislature you'd think would apply don't even apply. And, where it would be very natural. Consider that we're not asking tough, these are not, Mr. Kudalim, you've been in the scholastic environment for a long time. They aren't difficult applications. Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think I tend to kind of take the same train of thought as Senator Harris. I remember when the scholarship program through the board was first offered 10 years ago now, I want to say, and I was one of the inaugural recipients of the scholarship. And of course, the costs of post-secondary education have grown since then. And so I do think that working to consolidate some of the scholarships to get above that $1,000 mark will go a long way in helping promote applications for a scholarship. And as for other aspects, I do think that perhaps for youth legislators who are either current or say they maybe finish their term, their junior year of high school, and they have one more year to go during their senior year, if they're still local, perhaps we could consider some other opportunities to highlight or celebrate them, because it'll be easier to meet while they're in state. As for those who apply who are alumni who've left state for college or grad school or what have you, I do see the challenges of where it might be more difficult to arrange something like that. But certainly for those alumni who are local, or those who are currently in the program or soon to graduate, we could do something to honor them.
Yeah, thank you for that. These are important. This is, again, why I say we all bring different perspectives, and I appreciate each of you for your wisdom and your experience and your curiosity about what's possible, so thank you very much. Let's, right now, if it's okay with everybody, we'll go forward and consolidate, so we'll raise the value of that one from $750 to by $500, $1,250. I will see what my finances look like. If I can also maybe raise my scholarship, the one in my name, I might be able to also have to look at, again, my budget to see if I can raise that a little bit too. So here's a thought. What if we, instead of having, because at one point we just gave $500 scholarships in the early days. That's what we gave. What would your consideration be? Because Senator Woodhouse is now going to consolidate, so we can raise the value of that one. If we, going forward, and we'll have a conversation with Mr. Oglesby, but going forward, if we only have 2 scholarships and just have 2 that pay better, and then there's value to applying for them. So if it's okay with the board, I will look at the numbers and see what we can do. I'll have a conversation with Mr. Oglesby, maybe for this, because his money's carried over, and maybe just for this one shot, he could roll his into the NYL too. So for 1 year, it would be that higher value. So we'll have 2 scholarships of higher value, and that would address your comment, Senator Harris. Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it might also be worth a little bit of time seeing if we can get some private donations to these scholarships every now and again. I think there might be some folks out there who would, or businesses who would be willing to, sponsor a $1,000 scholarship to send a kid to college. So, maybe it's worth somebody's time. I don't know who. I don't know who's got it.
Based on that recommendation, what I would invite would be members of the board, if you, again, being primed to be on the lookout, if I would encourage all board members to be on the lookout for that kind of a contribution for this kind of a leadership program that's very, very distinctive. These young people know that there isn't another program like this probably in the world, but certainly in this country. There just isn't. And they are getting that, they're understanding that, and we have a great opportunity as board members to promote that very unique nature of the program, and the young people come out of it. Many of them do come back to Nevada, many of them don't. But that doesn't mean they don't have an influence on Nevada as role models for what's possible, whether it's here or somewhere else. They still started here. So I would encourage board members to think about it now that it's been introduced as a possibility by our colleague, Senator Harris, to think about how we could look at that. And that's something also where we might be able to do a blended NYL scholarship, and they can contribute possibility to a larger scholarship, and we have a couple of donors to contribute to that. So that's a possibility too. Yes, Mr. Kudalim. Okay, Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to add one more thought to the idea of a time and a place where we could honor the students who are receiving the scholarships, because this is the Nevada Youth Legislature who have been appointed by their senators, and certainly with information coming from the Assembly within each of those Senate districts. I don't know if this is possible, but I'm thinking of possibly presenting those scholarships at a legislative commission meeting, which is part of both houses. It's bipartisan, and they're legislators, and they meet every couple of months. So that we might be able to put something like that together. So
Great idea. Great idea.
I don't know if Senator Scheibel or Senator Harris are on the Ledge Commission, but you are. So maybe you could pursue that for us.
And let's think about the possibility for those who might not be here to receive it. We could still honor them by introducing the presentation of the scholarship. And then for those who can, would be in person, do it the way, in absentia, they'd still be recognized. Great, yeah.
Senator Woodhouse, I think it'd be simple enough to add an agenda item, doing the recognition whenever the time is right. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much, because this has been a lingering frustration, and that it's, again, this is one more example of our coming together with creative ideas, and it's not just an agenda item. You are passionate about it, and I want to thank you for that, because we have the opportunity, and look at what we accomplished just in this conversation with building off each other. So thank you so much to everybody. Mr. Okudalim.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to echo Senator Woodhouse's idea. I think that would be a wonderful idea to recognize the recipients, and perhaps as a physical artifact of being a recipient, given that we would have some of the biographical information from the applicants when they apply, perhaps a small proclamation or certificate could be prepared on behalf of our board or from the legislative commission. So I think that's a wonderful idea. Another idea I had, or something I wanted to mention, is several years ago, as part of my own contribution to give back to the program, I've offered to pay for the costs of the customized Nevada Legislature pad folios, similar to ones that the legislators get, and it's a reflection of what you had purchased for us, Senator Weiner, when I went through the program. And at this time, I think that's what I'm able to contribute, but in due course, I would be happy to have a conversation about perhaps helping contribute to a larger scholarship fund. Of course, I'm currently in graduate school, but when the time comes, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation and see about contributing also to a larger scholarship fund in addition to the pad folios.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okuda-Lim.
One more from me.
Okay, Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Because the scholarship that would have been gone to a Nevada Youth Legislator was rolled over because there was no one. So before you leave today, I'm going to give you a check for $250 so that the Nevada Youth Legislative Scholarship can be at $1,500.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Rather than giving that to me, it would be okay if you sent that to Tina Ashdown in Carson City. So the NYL scholarship will, for next year, or for the upcoming scholarship cycle, will be $1,500. And I'll see whether or not I can raise mine, but at least it's $1,000. And we'll see about Mr. Oglesby, what he wants to do with his. So thank you very much. That's lovely. Thank you very, very much. Okay, I think we've had wonderful conversation around this. So if there are no other comments, then we know some of the action steps that we are going to be looking at. If it's legislative commission, we already see where the money will be repooled. I will talk with Mr. Oglesby about his sum for this one run at it, and we'll see where we go with that. So I'll keep you all informed as we go forward. That doesn't require a vote. So let's move on to agenda item number 6. Which is future agenda items and dates for the meetings. I'm noticing in my notes, because I wrote notes for all of this, that we typically, it's lovely, I won't say typically, but we've had great energy around having that early meeting, because we are only required by law to have one meeting a year. We made an agreement a while back. We want to meet at least twice a year, and there's great value to that because we want to be able to keep up and share our energy and our ideas. And so it was typically in the summer, as Mr. Killian mentioned, right, the appointments came a little bit later this year to the board, the board appointments. And so typically we would meet in the budget cycle that Mr. Killian was referencing too. But the midterm one has been we created a great environment for that around the gathering in January down here, the NYL gathering and training. We get really great turnout for that. I mean, a lot of legislators enjoy it, and youth legislators and alums. And I'm noticing that in my notes, because typically, again, I'm using that word a lot, but we run the gathering from 2:30 to 4, and somewhere in my notes I said we could meet at 3:30, and that would be right at the end of the gathering. So I know that we don't want to stay longer than the end of the day, and so would it be okay with the board if I talk with Tina about what we do with the training gathering? If we're going to meet at 3:30 until, let's say, 5, then we'd need to start the gathering and training at 2, so we could have an hour and a half for that, or shorten it up to 1 hour. I need to talk with Tina if it's okay with the board. I don't know if I'll be chair after today, but I'm still chair until we have an election. And I'll have that information, have that conversation with Tina about adjusting times. Would it be okay for us to schedule, though, our mid-year meeting for the day of the NYL gathering and training in Las Vegas, which is January 5th? It's a Friday. So the big question here is, what time? It would either be at 3:30 or 4, if that's okay with everybody. Would that work? Yes. I don't think that takes a vote either, or does it, Mr. Killian? Some of these are just consensus decisions, so
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Council. Yes, scheduling of meetings is at the discretion of the chair, so a vote wouldn't be required.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I don't do anything by myself. I love working with, what do you think, guys? And, what are your opinions? Yeah, big collaborator here, so thank you, Mr. Killian. Okay, then we'll move on then to what we might be discussing. Does anybody have any burning issues that you'd like to bring to that meeting? Anything you might want to discuss that's showing up for you about the NYL? Yes, Mr. Kudalim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recall at our previous meeting, we had talked about, as part of advertising the program, looking into how participation in the NYL could support a student in obtaining the seal of civics as part of their diploma. And I just wanted to bring that up and see if we want to chat about moving forward with exploring that idea.
Yes, thank you. And Tina and I have talked about that, Ms. Ashdown. She, as part of her work at the legislature in research division, part of her assignment and alignment is in the arena of education. So she's been building those relationships to have those conversations. So what we'll do, if it's okay with everybody, is have Tina come and be a little bit more specific about what's available and what's doable, because the last time we were in the crunch, the timing crunch was very difficult for that. But let's make sure that Tina comes with action steps that we can move forward with, because there are things in place. Mr. Killian, after that meeting, or even during the meeting, didn't waste any time sending what's already in statute that's available. So there are things that are available. It's what we take advantage of and move forward with. Another consideration would also be if we could actually implement that and not have to wait for a new term to start, but if there's something we can implement for the current term. And if we meet in January, we'd still have the time to be able to do that because it'd still be in the program. Yes, Senator Woodhouse. Oh.
Senator Weiner, Board.
Yes.
The State Board of Education does not determine the elective credits, so we would have to reach out to each individual district to find out if they would allow the NYL to serve as an elective credit.
Take note, zoom in on Senator Woodhouse for that. Yeah, we have to consider timing with this then. We've got things going on. There's a contemporaneous issue right now in this particular school district, so that might be, is that framing it?
That's accurate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So then what else would you suggest? Are there other, Senator Woodhouse, you have some thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Tina, except my head hit the desk when you said that. Have you had a chance to talk to Janie Maloney at the Nevada Department of Education? She's the one that is in charge of the Civic Seal and getting all the information out to the school districts. So what we might do is check in with her and get an idea of what the pathway could be in dealing with the school districts to get them on board with the Civic Seal for NYL. But I know that she's the contact person for that program.
So Tina, is that possible that you could get back to us at the January meeting about the steps that we could maybe put into place and what the possibilities would be that we could actually create this value for the program during the current 2-year term? That would be something that would, and for a 1 year, because we had talked about being, whether it's a 2-year, I don't know, credit, I don't know what you call it, but recognition or whatever, or 1 year or 2 1 years, whatever, to see what the possibilities are so we don't lose the potential of doing something like this during the current term, rather than having to wait till we start all over again. If there's some way we can bridge into that, which might be a great bridge, a transition for us to then do it on a bigger scale. So is that something, Tina, that you might be able to do?
Yes, I'll get in
Look
touch
into.
with Janie Maloney.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Any other discussion on future agenda items? Thank you, Mr. Kudalim. Oh, excuse me. Oh, our newest board member, Assemblymember Mosca.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My experience with the youth legislature, which I'm a big fan of, has been as an educator and referring students, and I've known students who have gone through it. And so my question was, do we have a list of alumni and what they're doing now so that we can show people the value of this program and how it's impacted in the long term?
As officially, no, but unofficially, for those that I'm privileged to mentor, I have about 30 that go all the way back to 2012. Zahn was one of the early ones. He's still one of my mentees and closest allies who's been through the program. I keep that record pretty current on those because that would be a great cutoff for us because those are mentor trainers who've stayed with the program and are demonstrating their own success. So we do have that, and that's a great place to start because they're the ones who'd be likely to allow us to use that information anyway because they're still affiliated. And again, the value that they've chosen to be mentor trainers in the program shows their commitment to the program as well as their engagement in the rest of the world. So I do have that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that would be great if we have time to have that for the next one or whenever we meet next, just so we can show people it's a long-term, because I know that personally, that it's a long-term impact. And then we can even ask them if they want to ask their classmates, since they're the leaders.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Tina, if you'd remind me, I will bring my roster, and I update it as frequently as I can. Sometimes I don't know when they move on. They don't share that with me until they've already changed twice, but I have what I've got as current as they've been giving it to me, so I do have that information. So I will provide that for the next meeting. Thank you very much. Great idea. Thank you. Yes, Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. When I read the annual report, and I might have been in the wrong group of students that are in NYL, but somewhere in here I read this afternoon that we didn't have a student representative for Senate District 12 and 18. Is that the current group, or is that from the
last group? We have 21 now.
Okay, all right.
We had one.
Makes me feel a lot better.
What often happens, so that some are digging in a little bit about how, what things happen in the program. In statute, youth legislators, and we only changed this a couple of sessions ago, in the original statutory language, the program was a one-year program. So all they were required to do was a town hall meeting, attend the 2 or 3 meetings, required meetings, and do the BDR. And so it was very lean, and they could have, at 2 unexcused absences, they would be removed. But in 1 year, you almost can't get there. But when we expanded to a 2-year program with changes in 2011, and that's when the board was created, 2 unexcused activities or absences, all of a sudden when you've got monthly trainings and outside activities, all of a sudden that is a real stretch for them to be able to get everything done. So a couple of sessions ago we upped it to 3, and that is very appropriate to what their schedules are. We've taken something out. We used to have the District Youth Advisory Council, which was a labor for them and for us. It was very difficult for them to put that together and recruit and so on. So we just removed that from the program. So what can happen then, once in a while, we might have a resignation from a youth legislator because they say, I didn't realize it would require so much work and time. I'm overloaded. And I can assure you that we provide what this program expects from youth legislators from the very, very beginning. They know how many trainings, how many assignments. It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. But it's not real to them until it's real to them. However, in statute, Tina keeps an extraordinary record, a spreadsheet, on each youth legislator and their attendance and their assignments, and it's extraordinary. And they get a copy of their own record, where their status at every meeting, training, so it's no surprise. They know where they stand. She's excellent at providing updates to them in their folders. And so, but it comes down to, in statute, it's the chair or vice chair who decides of the board what is an excused activity or an excused absence. And Tina loves it when someone requests, because she can't get to the computer fast enough to forward it to me. And she smiles when she send, right? And so, but that's the nature, and they know what the criteria are, and still would. But if I get someone who says, something's come up, I won't be there, that's not enough, you know? I mean, emergencies, share with me what it is. And if it's a debate practice, no. If it's a debate tournament, yes. If it's an emergency something, or you know, something I mean, it's case by case. And I was very, very clear on that at their training, first training. I said, some things, and I even said on assignments, outside activities, I'm not as lean and lenient, because why? And one of the youth legislators, actually, Youth Legislator Breeden, Senator Breeden's niece, came up with the answer. She said, we know about the assignments well in advance, so we got plenty of time to turn them in. And that's exactly right. When it's a time certain, real-time meeting or training, things happen. When they have a 2-year calendar on assignments and we train them to the assignments, it's real tough to say, well, I fell asleep at midnight, so I missed the deadline. It's just real difficult. And those are case-by-case decisions that that the chair or vice chair makes, but I usually make it. So, yeah, going forward, that's, so when we have the two, I believe, Tina, you have to help me here, but I believe they ran into the limit on unexcused.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this year we have 20.
This year.
Well, this year we have 21 right now. We're early. And one was not at the inaugural training because he didn't realize he'd been appointed. Miscommunication. We were panicking, you know, kind of having lots of not panic, having a lot of executive conversations around it and considering alternatives. And finally, Tina, with her persistence, made contact with him. And he was at the first training and sworn in. And put his name forward to be chair. So he was very courageous as a new, and didn't know any of them because they'd already had inaugural training. So I smiled. I thought, you know, he's jumping in, you know, good for him. So eager to be part of the program. So there we are. So anyway, any additional discussion about future agenda items? Okay. Then we will move on to agenda item number 7, election of our officers for 2023-2024. I will, and I'm going to take these in order of how they're listed. I will accept a nomination for chair. Senator Woodhouse.
I will nominate Valerie Weiner to continue as our chair.
Thank you. Are there any additional? Yes, Senator Harris.
No additional nomination. I move to close nominations.
Oh. Okay, we have a motion and a second and a third and a fourth. And I'm not voting, so there we are, to close nominations. So we'll vote, though there's only one candidate for. All those in favor of my being retained as chair of the Nevada Youth Legislature Board, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Please note unanimous support among members present. We'll move on now to nominations for vice chair. I will accept nominations. Senator Harris.
Madam Chair, I move to nominate former Senator Joyce Woodhouse
Okay,
as vice chair.
Okay, we have a nomination for Senator Woodhouse. Do we have any additional nominees? Okay, there being no additional nominations, all those in favor of Senator Woodhouse to retain her position as vice chair of the NYL board, please say aye. 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 All those opposed? Please note unanimous support among members present. Nomination for secretary, I will accept nominations. Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would nominate Senator Dallas Harris to continue as our secretary for the board.
Okay, do we have any additional nominations? There being none, we'll close the call for nominations. All those in favor of Senator Harris retaining her position as secretary, please say aye. All those opposed? Please note unanimous support among members present. We'll move on to treasurer. I will entertain nominations for treasurer.
Madam Chair, or do
Yes.
you want
Who would like?
to? Okay, Madam Chair, I will nominate Senator Scheibel as the treasurer for the board.
The upcoming year. Do we have any additional nominations? Nominations are closed. All those in favor, in support of Senator Scheibel for treasurer, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Please note unanimous support among members present. Okay, well, I had in my notes if reelected as chair. And it's been a privilege, a joy, the ultimate reward, an ongoing unfolding delight of a journey to be able to represent the board in the activities and decisions regarding the NYL program, and I appreciate your continued support. It's something that when I represent the board in whatever capacity and training, whatever, that I bring the unity and the collaboration of the board to every activity that I do, and I thank you for this privilege to go forward representing the teamwork that we contribute to this amazing organization. Thank you so very much. So moving on to agenda item number 8. Board members' comments, questions, and discussions. Do any board members have any additional things they'd like to share? Mr. Okuda Lim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to quickly say and express my appreciation to all the members of the board for all of your support of the program, and to you, Chair Wiener, for your ongoing support from when this was just an idea through the present. And I also want to thank the Legislative Commission for reappointing me to represent the alumni on the board, and I'm really excited to work with all of you with the upcoming term and supporting the current youth legislators. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm going to piggyback that. It is such a thrill as the application period is opened, and of course some of the sitting legislators don't apply the way those of us who are no longer elected, but that you agree to come back again. It means so much that Ms. Erica Mosca said yes. We've talked about this for a long time. We've partnered through other youth organizations and had great success. That each of you comes not because, oh, again, but you come with freshness. You have your energy, you have your passion about what we do, and it shows. It shows. This isn't just one more board, one more committee. You bring vitality to what we do, and I'm so grateful that it's not like, oh, again, it's yay, another opportunity to work together. Hallelujah. Oh, I'd say, my word is yippee, but if I say it, I'll bust the electronics here. So, yippee. Yippee. Anyway, so thank you for that. I do have something that I want to bring to, I thought about this, and I had a conversation with Tina Ashdown, and I thought this is a great place to put it. And thank you, Mr. Killing, because you can help me with this as well. We have, I won't say recently, but more so recently, but over the years, sometimes we have visiting delegations who, want representatives to speak to them from the NYL. And we're very fortunate that we have youth legislators, sometimes alums, but often the current ones, who have the privilege of addressing a delegation from another country. And we've had that happen a couple times. But what we've had, we're getting, it seems more and more of. I mean, it's not like it floods us, but it's enough that we've reached that threshold. We have organizations, some of which I've never heard of, and so the staff looks them up and they're legitimate, but we have inquiries from different organizations, some on a national scale. They know who we are, and they're familiar with the accomplishments and the type of program we have and the leadership opportunities. And we're finding, coming from different places, they want to partner with us, or they want to collaborate, or they want to model, whatever verb you want to use. And it's been case by case. We always respond to the increase. Tina sends it to me and I respond and we have conversation. But Mr. Killian, I'm seeking help here. With the permission of the board, to work with legal to create, I don't think we need to do it in statute, but to create and if we do, we can, but to create a very clear policies and practices and protocols about how we make decisions going forward to collaborate, to partner, to lend expertise, how that looks, because each one is asking a heavy lift. Sometimes they inquire and we do a lot of response and we don't hear back, but one recent one was a national organization and they wanted to replicate this in other states as well as nationally. This is big, and we have no policy or practice or procedures about what we can do, because bottom line, this is a legislative program. It isn't about us. It's a legislative program, and so it has a substantial impact on the legislature making a commitment through one of its entities. And Mr. Killian, is that something we could work on to establish policies, procedures, practices, or what that might look like?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Council. Yeah, we'd be happy to work with you on that to come up with more concrete guidance for youth legislators and for the board on how to engage with external entities.
Thank you. And what you just said was really important. You expanded it more locally, and just by what you said. We also do get like statewide organizations, and sometimes youth legislators ask about the partnering. I'm thinking about the bigger ones, but we've had countries ask us about partnering. But we do have, so Mr. Killian, that's a great add-on. A policy, whether it be local or state, national or international, we're at that point. It's been case by case, and we haven't stumbled. But we need that certainty. It's not our program; it's the legislature. So, Mr. Killian, it wouldn't need to be statutory, would it? Or can we just do it as a policy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Council. It wouldn't necessarily have to be statutory. If the legislature chose to, certainly it could. But since this board is the nonprofit corporation that manages the youth legislature and has been empowered to do that by the legislature itself, the board could, as a matter of creating its own policy or amending its own bylaws, enact any sort of rules it thinks would be proper for managing that kind of contact.
So as you just mentioned, amending bylaws, and we can have this conversation, then if we choose to do it that way, because it would be binding at that point, it would be, in our bylaws, is that something then that if we can meet between now and that January, the January meeting, is that something then we could propose at that meeting, a bylaw change? Would that be adequate at this point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Council. Certainly, we could meet with you and put in all the work necessary between now and then to have something put together for the board to consider.
Okay, thank you very much. Would that work for everybody? And and again, we start there, and we will have that opportunity to know going forward if we need to make it statutory. And one of our board members could likely carry that bill. So thank you, because that's been weighing on me. It's been decisions I've been making, and I've shared with Tina one in particular. They were extraordinarily eager to work and replicate on a big scale, and it just didn't feel right. Intuitively, it just didn't feel right. And I thought, this isn't about my intuition, it's about policy and practice. So thank you for indulging me that, and so we will go forward with that. At this time, too, under our comments, I want to again thank all those people who make this happen. I mean, we're sitting here and we have the luxury of water and microphones and all the all the resources, and the resources are all created by the legislative staff. So I want to thank the LCB. All the 16 plus years, Tina is our facilitator and all the research support, and Maria is our secretary, and then legal with Mr. Killian and Mr. Noss, and we have, the legislative police at both ends, and we have the BPS support to ensure that we can have this kind of a connection across the many hundred miles. Can't even, and I'm a word person, and I can't come up with the words of gratitude that are big enough to thank everybody broadly enough for all the contributions, of course, the board too. So I'll say it on behalf of the board as well as to the board. Thank everyone for their commitment. It goes above and beyond a paycheck. It goes above and beyond some other commitments that we have because of the far-reaching ripple effect that the young people who come through this program have within the context of the NYL and the things they do beyond the program. So thank you all very much. Anybody else have any comments or remarks you want to make at this time? I get teary-eyed. Bear with me. At this time, then, we will move on to agenda item number 9, public comment. This is the opportunity during our meeting, at the conclusion of our meeting, for anyone to come forward in the north. Anyone running to, I love this. BPS, you have a great sense of humor. And now we can see the south. It's just people are running to the table to get here. I mean, we're going to have to line them up. So is there anyone on the telephone who would like to participate under public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, but the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers.
Thank you very much for providing that information. There being no members of the public wanting to participate in our board meeting, looks like we are done with agenda item number 9, public comment. Agenda item number 10, adjournment. This does conclude our meeting for now, and we will have our next gathering and meeting in January, and Tina and I will make a decision around those times to ensure, but as long as you put that day, save the date, we'll clarify that a little bit more. So thank you, everyone, and thanks for your confidence to continue in this role. I appreciate each of you for the talents and the intelligence and the head and heart skill sets that you bring to the work of this amazing board, and thanks to all of those who allow us to sit here and do a good job. So there being no other business before the NYL board, we are adjourned.